Soul Awakening South Africa, and I've got another little story I wanted to share with you. So in one of the competitions that they went out, Dad and all the other teammates were given a little red cap as part of one of the sponsorships. So onto the boat they went that morning, eager to catch the fish and to win this competition. So as they're going out, the weather is becoming more and more drastic. And the deeper they go out to sea, the greater and these huge waves and swells were coming in, and the weather was just getting really to be quite bad. In fact, they probably shouldn't have been out there. But seeing that it was a competition, they hung it out and they just persevered. So there comes a moment where one of the people on the boat begins to, who catches a fish, but it's not yet on the boat. So he's busy bringing it in, or whatever the fishing terminology is, I don't know, reeling it in. So he's reeling in his fish. And just before they can get the fish to the boat, it's a huge struggle, because every time the fish is kind of coming near, my dad's standing there with a gaff, which is a long stick with a sort of a hook on the end of it, which will help bring the fish in, and then they can launch it, put it onto the boat. So as they're standing there, they are standing on very precarious sort of foundation, because these swells, these ocean swells, are so huge. They're like mountains. So the boat goes up a mountain and then boom, down on the other side. So while this is happening, Dad is standing waiting for the fish to come a little bit closer to gaff it. And in one moment, the boat is pushed over to its side just a little bit more than it should have been, and my dad goes falling overboard. So now my dad is in the ocean. He has got on full wet gear, which is like gumboots, a rain, sort of a jacket, a sort of a waxy raincoat jacket, and these waterproof pants. He's got a fishing rod, his fishing rod in one hand, and he's got the gaff in the other hand, and he's got the little red cap. And overboard is my dad in the great blue sea, and these huge crazy waters and this ridiculous weather. And what does my dad say in his wisdom, which I'm still questioning? He says to the people on the boat, "Don't worry about me, land your fish." Now, I cannot fathom that someone in the deep blue sea, in crazy weather like this, could ever think that that was a genius idea. Anyway, more remarkable than that are the idiots on the boat who think actually this is quite a good idea. They will much rather land the fish than pick my daddy up out of this water. So they now take all their attention away from watching the man who has got nothing to keep him afloat in these great mountainous seas. They are going to put their attention onto the fish, which is very important that it gets onto this boat, because after all, it's a competition and blah, blah, blah. So now, by this time, when they've landed the fish, a good 15 minutes later, they now begin to look around to see where Ted is. And can they see him? No. Because every time they go up on a swell, they can see over the tops of the waves that are forming. But every time they go down into the valley, can they see him? No. And in desperation, they realize that Teddy is nowhere to be seen. And there comes a moment as the boat goes up one of these swells and rises up to the very top. And as they get to the top, there in the distance, they see a little red cap. And now they decide they better get there really quickly, because who knows how much time has passed. So off they go to rescue Teddy. Now, this is what my dad's experience was like. Once he got overboard and brought his great exclamation of, "Don't worry about me, land the fish," as he got into the water and as the water began to fill up into the gumboots, he was being pulled down into the water. He had no life jacket on, and he had no way to swim and hold himself supported inside of this great ocean because his hands were full. And he said all he could do in this moment was to surrender and allow himself to simply bob in the water. So every time a swell surged and pushed him upward, he would take a breath of the air and the life. And then as the swell came down, so he would go down and beneath and underneath this great ocean, submerged and immersed inside of this water. He said the only thing that he thought would be a really good idea is if he kept his red cap on. And as he would come up and get the air, and he would grab the peak of the cap with the little thumb and the forefinger of the hand that was still holding the gaff, and he would just pull it down as he went back into the ocean. So as he now became submerged, he said all he could do was allow himself to be in that space, in the deep ocean. There was nothing else he could do. And all he could do was surrender. Because now he had to trust that there would be another swelling up from underneath and that it would raise him up enough to get to the surface to get the next breath. So every breath was a considered moment, a gift, that he would be brought up to the surface enough to grab the breath, to take it in, and then he would hold it and the cap and allow himself to go back down. And this went on, which must have seemed like for eternity, bobbing for his life. At one point, my dad said he felt like he might not be able to continue. It just was getting too much. He was getting exhausted. And sometimes as he came up to the surface, the wind pushed over a stream of water into his face before he could capture a little bit of air. And so sometimes he went down and his lungs began to fill up with some water and he started to choke on this water. And then in one moment he remembered when he was a child, a little boy, he fell into a dam and he said he could remember being underneath and looking up. And as he looked up, he could see the people, the young boys who were with him. He could see them standing on the banks, looking at him, and their distorted vision of them standing there. And he said he can remember clearly just looking up and thinking, well, this is how I'm going to die. And out of nowhere, my great-grandmother came and pulled this little boy out of the water and saved his life. But he said even then, as a young boy, he thought it's not so bad to die. It's not so bad to even drown. All you do is surrender. And that moment, he realized he had had that experience before and that it was okay. That no matter what, it was okay. So that's my dad's experience. Now the boat is trying to get close to him. So you can imagine they are coming across the water and they're going up and down these huge swells. And they come to a point where they come up to the swell and my dad is up at the top of the swell. And then both sides of the swell take them away once again. So there was this cat and mouse kind of game of them coming in tantalizingly close to being saved and then being swept apart. My dad said there was one moment where he realized he could not do this for very much longer. And in the next surge of these two waves where the boat was just close enough with the gaff in his hand, the stick with the hook on the end, he pushed it out and luckily it was just in reach and the people in the boat pulled him in and him lying on the side of the boat, gasping and breathing and coughing and choking, knowing that he had come very, very, very close to his life being over. Now, here we consider what this is. At this moment, my dad is leaning over the side of the boat. He's thinking that he is still alive and he's grateful for that. And as he looks next to the boat and looks down, a huge mako shark is there. And they measure the mako sharks by their girth. And the girth of this mako shark was about the size of an ox. So it was a huge, huge shark. And Dad said that as he looked at it, the shark kind of rolled itself to the side and just gazed up at him. He said, eyeball to eyeball, they looked at each other, and he realized that his life was in God's hands. That moment, God's hands. So incredible is that story. So let's talk about what that is. In all our life journeys, we are literally in and out of our journey, in and out of our struggles. Don't mind my dog barking. I'm going to close the door. In and out the struggles of life. Okay, so here's my dad, and this is the journey, and this is the metaphor. Let's understand this. Here we are in this life. We are immersed in this life. And this life becomes exactly what it needs to be, with all the experiences that we need to have. They are coming into this life journey. And just like my dad, who was immersed in this body of water, he realized that the only thing he could do was to release any kind of struggle, any kind of fear, and just allow this body of water, the source of all that is, to allow us to come up and breathe, or allow us to settle down into it once again. This bobbing, this moving up and this moving down makes me think of another thing that we need to remember. We came into this life journey with a deep knowing of what it is that we're supposed to be part of. And we have moments of catching a glimpse, like coming up for that breath. We have moments of remembering why we are here. And those are the divine and unique moments of our life when we know what it is that we're here to be part of. And we capture this breath, and we find ourselves in this life. And we remember why we are here, and we remember that we are magnificent beings. And then we have these moments when we just go into and down. And I think of those moments and those swells when we go down. Those are the moments when we forget. And we forget why we are here. We forget how magnificent we are. And we forget how much potential we have. And why is that? Why do we need to forget what it is that we are here to do? And I can tell you exactly why. It's because we need to be fully immersed in the experience of this life. We need to feel it from all sides of our being. We need to know it in every possible way. And this is why we have this beautiful body that can see and hear and smell and taste and touch and know, plus all the other sensory perceptions that we have. We are here to experience this life. And we are here to forget a little while, just a short while. We forget how incredible we are so that we can feel what it is that we need to feel and connect to. And some of that is hugely painful and hugely sad. But while we are forgetting and while we are experiencing and knowing fully through our entire sensory being, we are creating a linking thread, a cord that links us to why it is that we are here. And I can tell you what we need to remember is that we are here to complete a divine life purpose. And that purpose is to release the great struggling, suffering, and pain of our family and ancestral line. This is the reason we are here. And if we can remember that in the moments of coming up to get that breath, if we can remember why we are here, and then we can feel what it is that we are part of and knowing and understanding through our experience, then we will have the connecting cord to the line of suffering or pain or heartache or whatever it is that our ancestors have accumulated and left as debris here for us. Now, this is the other part, that this level of debris, this debris that we're in, sometimes it just feels like we're walking in molasses, that we can barely move and we can barely sustain ourselves. It's because there has been a huge accumulation of energy that is dark and sad and miserable. And it has been left here by our ancestors. Those who have gone before have known great pain and great suffering, great hardship, great longing, great persecution. This has been in all our family lines, going back hundreds and hundreds of years. And just like we have an energy imprint, a genetic imprint that shows us up as part of a tribe, so we also have an energy imprint that feels and senses inside of us. And sometimes we don't even know why we're so sad. It's because there is a connection to an ancient pain or heartache that was not released. It was not released by those who have gone before. And when I say released, it needs to be released back to light and love through forgiveness and brought back to gratitude. This is the only way that we can release this trauma. And this is the only reason we are suffering and experiencing trauma. This is why we are in the deep swells of this life. This is why we are experiencing what we are experiencing. This is a profound life journey that we are on. And we need to remember. We need to remember why we're here. And we need to remember how glorious we are and how magnificent we are. And how much potential we have. And we have come in, encoded within for our magnificence. So these are the words that I heard. I am. And I'm saying you are. I am divinely and uniquely encoded within for my magnificence. This is already in me. All it needs to do is to come through and shine out while I'm experiencing this life journey. And if I can remember why I'm here, then I will be able to do this journey more purposefully and with more awareness and with more courage and love and more endurance. Oh, I so wish that for all beings to find this way, find their way back home, a place to remember. So I think that's all I needed to tell you. But I do have this little book that I want to tell you about, and A Journey to Remember. It's available on Amazon, and there are some insights in here and some gifts that might help you to awaken. And my deep yearning is that you will find your way, and yet you will be blessed as you find your way, and that your family, those to still come, will feel the lightness then. Because as we release this great suffering, we are releasing the density of trauma that is sitting here as an energetic vibration. I know it's hard for us to imagine that. It's hard for us to imagine anything that we can't see, taste, touch, feel. But the energy that we are aware of and that we are holding and that is holding us is very, very real and very, very present. So may you come into presence And may you come into a higher space of accepting your life as a deep, divine, loving, purposeful journey. And may your journey be a journey to remember. Many blessings as you go on this journey. Many, many blessings. Stay strong. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you.